salutations, it's me, Salty, welcome back to Two Cents Toys, and today I'm doing something a little bit different, and it's not a review. I know, calm down. They're coming back. I'm actually going to talk about Dragon Ball Z. This is the first in a series of videos that I'm calling The Way I Played. I'm going to talk about some of my favorite toys, or toy groupings, that I played with as a kid, and kind of how I did it. I know it seems kind of weird to talk about that, but I think it's always interesting. Whenever I talk to another collector, hearing about how they utilized things during playtime, like how they mixed, Darth Vader fighting Superman, if they did that kind of thing, and how in their head they justified who won that fight. Well, for Dragon Ball Z, I didn't do a lot of intermingling. It was pretty much just the figures. Now, a lot of these are recent acquisitions because I had a lot of them as a kid, but they all, for the most part, went with the second collection that I sold. So they were part of the casualty in that when I sold my second collection. And my best friend at the time was also into Dragon Ball Z and buying the figures. We kind of had this agreement that if one of us bought one, the other one wouldn't buy it, so we could maximize our playtime together by having a variety of characters. We were pretty smart for being, 12 years old. I digress. So, how I played with them, I had these giant wooden blocks, that I would set up, and I'd build little houses and little buildings with them. And they would fight, knock them over, and all that, kind of like they do in the cartoon. You had to suspend your disbelief a little bit with the wooden blocks. But eventually, one of my favorite things to do, I would take a notepad, right? And let's say, I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have 11 figures here. Technically, I only have 9 different characters because 3 of them are Trunks. So, I've mentioned before why I liked having even numbers in my collection, and this is why. So, if you're familiar with the show, you clearly know about the World's Martial Arts Tournament. Well, that's what I would do. I'd write, Krillin, Gohan, Piccolo, blah, 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 and I'd each give them a number. Well, then on a separate piece of paper, I would write numbers, and I would tear them up, and I would put them into a hat and draw them out, and I would create brackets. So, I'd come up with my World Martial Arts bracket, and then I would flip a coin to see who won, and then I would play it out. I know it sounds kind of dumb, but I had a lot of fun doing that. Like, I had a stupid amount of fun doing that for some reason. It was just something that I enjoyed. It sounds kind of cumbersome, but it was really a lot of fun. Now, the fun part in allowing it to be up to chance was, say, putting, I don't know, Krillin fighting Gohan. Now, clearly, Gohan, this is Super Saiyan Gohan, and he's going to kick Krillin's ass. But if Krillin won the coin toss, I had to somehow, in my head, justify why Krillin would beat Gohan in Super Saiyan form. Like, I'd have to come up with a story in my head, like Krillin needs the money so Gohan would lose the fight, or... it was a lot of fun. Beyond that, what really made it interesting was, let's say, I had Nappa fighting Trunks. Now, Trunks is my favorite character, as I've said before, but this is one of the old Irwin Dragon Ball Zs, which only had articulation here in the arms. And Nappa has, swivel at the waist, bend at the knees, the thighs, swivel and pivot up here at the shoulders, head movement. So if Trunks won the coin toss, I had to do a lot of mental gymnastics to work around that. Because the limited articulation, I had to use a lot of imagination where I had a lot of more practical ability with Nappa. Something else that kind of hindered playtime a little bit was, I'll just use Trunks as an example again, where, this Trunks has the kind of, not modern, but it was updated articulation like in the knees and the hips and the like. Well, the only Super Saiyan form of this version I owned was this, where he had very limited articulation. He was just a 5 POA and had his hand permanently outstretched like that. And he was part of the line that had this kind of blast gimmick. And if I wanted to go up another level of Super Saiyan, which was Super Saiyan Ultra for Trunks, this was the only costume version I had of that particular level, which meant I lost even more points of articulation and his costume changed. And I was one of those kids, like, I had to somehow, in playtime, like, I was like, oh, these people would notice if the costume changed, so I'd have to make up dialogue on why his costume changed out of nowhere. It was silly, in hindsight. But that was one of those things that I just did. Any little thing that happened, I had to justify it. Like, I had to come up with dialogue. I had to explain it away in playtime to kind of keep my brain engaged in what I was doing without kind of falling out of it, so to speak. Like when you see a movie and something in it happens that kind of just pulls you right out of the movie and you're like, what the hell? Same thing applied at playtime. Something that doesn't really involve playtime so much, just a story I'd like to tell, is Broly. Out of the figures on this table, I either the exact same figure or a close version of, Broly was the only one I never had, and he was the one I wanted the most out of everybody. Now, when I became like fully aware of Dragon Ball Z and was watching it every day, it was on syndication on Cartoon Network during the Toonami block, and I didn't know that the toys that I was seeing for Dragon Ball Z had been around for a while. Like the Irwin figures had been around since the late 80s going into the early 90s. So Broly had already come and gone from our shelves. You know, what I had mostly were peg warmers. I saw Broly exactly one time in stores, and it was at a Kmart. Now, this was a couple weeks, maybe a month before Christmas, maybe Black Friday, I really don't remember. And I just remember seeing him on the pegs and begging and just begging my mom to let me get him. And she gave me the answer that most parents say, and they say, no, you know, Santa Claus is coming, maybe he'll bring him for you. And so I was of the age where I was like, okay, that means she's going to get it when I'm not looking, and I'll get him for Christmas. Maybe. Well, Christmas came and went, and I didn't get him. So I remember going back to Kmart to look for him. I think I'd gotten a $10 bill for Christmas or something, and he was long gone. Just gone. Never again did I see him on the pegs anywhere. So I got this fella off eBay probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, to fill in a hole in the collection and to kind of close the book on that one that got away from that part of my collection. And given his size and stature, you can see why he would be so awesome to have at playtime. Again, you know, the big, strong, monstery looking kind of guys, he would have been awesome to have. And one of the other things I loved about playtime is even if I didn't really like the characters so much, like I mentioned about Nappa in my collecting habits video, Spopovich, this guy is another one where he's only in the show, I think, for maybe 7 episodes tops, something like that. But just because he was, you know, this big, kind of strong looking figure, and he could, you know, physically wallop the hell out of most of these guys, playtime with him was a lot of fun. And it's because of things like that, because of playtime, it helps you develop an appreciation for other characters that you might not have developed otherwise because of lack of inclusion in a show or movie, per se. That's all I really got for you today. I know this was kind of a weird video, but I'm hoping to spark a conversation down in the comments about, you know, how you played with your toys. Like if you collected Dragon Ball Z, what line of Dragon Ball Z you were most familiar with, whether it be, you know, the new SH Figuarts, maybe you're new to it, or maybe you only had the old Irwin figures with the movable arms and that was it. You know, let me know down below who your favorite character is too. I always love hearing that. But more importantly, let me know if you had them, how you played. Like, did you do the whole World Martial Arts tournament, or maybe you got together with your best friend and you tried to play through the whole saga with your figures, trying to play through the storyline? Anyway, thanks for stopping by, and until next time, I'm Salty, signing off.